Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, and we are meeting once again with lecture 28 of Business English. Well, congratulations on reaching so far and being up with me and learning so quick and so fast. Now we are going to start with where we left in the last lecture for presentation skills. Do you remember what we talked about in the last lecture? Yes, we talked about some strategies and some techniques that we need to go through in order to improve our presentation skills, or in order to learn our skills to be an effective presenter. Today we are going to add into that knowledge by learning a few more new things. We are going to learn what is this 3A strategy in preparation that we apply during our preparation for a presentation. How do we develop our visual aids, and how do we respond to questions during or after presentation? All right, let's start with our talk of today, that is about presentation skills. However, if we want to be an effective presenter, we need to understand the fact that this demands a lot of practice. Practice about all the things. In the previous lecture, we talked about some do's and don'ts that can help us impart content. We talked about the ethical aspect of presentation skills, the professional aspect of presentation skills, about the environment, about the room, about the system, about our physical appearance, about our eye contact, all these non-verbal things attached with the presentation, all the aid attached with the presentation, all the communication skills aspect attached with the presentation. However, today we are going to start with how do we prepare our content for presentation? Because if presentation is all about conveying a message, and conveying a message has two aspects: what to be conveyed and how to be conveyed. So this what and how is our focus. In the previous lecture about presentation skills, we talked about how your message is to be conveyed. Today we are going to focus what is to be conveyed, and definitely we cannot separate both of them. They will go hand in hand, and we'll keep on touching on hows and what's simultaneously. But when we say what to be conveyed, we are talking about the content, the message of the presentation, and this involves the argument that we are trying to make, our point, the audience to whom we are talking, what are their expectations, what are their demands, what are their needs as far as the topic is concerned, as far as the message is concerned, as far as my argument is concerned, and how am I going to do that? What strategy I'm going to apply it? Because if it's plain information, they can get information from anywhere. What hierarchy of information I'm going to use? How am I going to tell my audience that this is what I'm selling? Okay, now in order to prepare your content, you need to apply 3A strategy. Look at the audience, analyze your audience. You should know your audience. Now, you get back to your discussion regarding business English. Right in the beginning, we talked about a few essentials of business English, where audience analysis is one of the major essentials. You always need to know about audience, because you would know what is demanded, what is requested, what is there that you need to bring for your customer. Only then you are able to satisfy the needs of the customer. Define what action you want them to take. Well, if the objective of my presentation is to be my audience convinced, how do I know that they are convinced? Do I want them to take some action? Do I want them to question me? Do I want them to buy my product? Do I want them to be ready to compare my product with the one they have already bought, or they always buy? Whatever I intend, by the end of my presentation, my talk, I should be ready to announce it in my presentation as a presentational announcement that do the action, do it, and they should be ready by that time to take that step that I want them to take. Arrange your argument to move them. So your presentation should be persuasive and convincing to prepare your audience to take the action that you want them to take. However, if by the end of the talk you find that your audiences are still there, they are not convinced, that means you have not been able to convince them for one reason or another. But the end product is that they are not convinced. How do we analyze our audience? Well, I discussed about this aspect during most of the discussion based on documents that we did so far. However, that was for the reader's audience, and now we are talking about the listener's audience. So what are their names? Always knowing their names. If you need to take their name, it develops a kind of relation between you and the listener. So if you take their titles, or if you call them with their title plus name, and you know a little bit of background of your listeners, and you know the reason why are they attending, you are always in a better position to present your point of view and convince them. What are their big concerns? If you are aware of their big concerns, that probably the big concern is money, the cost of the object, so you will try to focus on that aspect comparatively more than the other aspect. Or if their aspect is ease, if their concern is luxury, if their concern is distance, whatever their concern are, try to make them speak and try to know their concerns before you prepare for your presentation. And once you know the concerns, basically you know the target points where you are going to hit. So it's knowing your target makes your job easy to, point at the target and shoot to get your, to get your hunt. Well, I'm sorry to use this expression here, but it has to be used because, well, yes, when we are dealing with customers, we are dealing with, we are dealing with them, and to achieve our purpose, we need to set our goals, and to set our goals, we need to know what is our destination. Pointing out your destination, fixing your destination, always helps you analyze the distance you have to cover, how will you go it, how many directions you can take, what is your backup plan if you fail in one direction. So if you know what is to be achieved, why it is to be achieved, how many ways are there to be achieved, then you are always in a better position to negotiate with the customer and can create a win-win situation. All right. What are their objectives, fears, hot buttons, and attitudes? Well, it's always good if you have an idea about it. You see, if you know what are your objectives, if you know what are the fears, that means concerns of your customers, if you know what are the hot buttons to press, like if my customer looks like that he's very much annoyed with somebody talk to me in this way, that means she needs to be or he needs to be talked with a lot of respect. Use that button to steer your way out of that situation. If attitude is the problem, work it out. If money is the problem, as much as is affordable, work it out. You are making a customer. You are making this is a prospective client, and you cannot lose it. You cannot afford losing it. So if you have understanding of these ideas, these attitudes, these hot buttons, you can press them for your benefit, for company's benefit. However, we can never exploit our customers. This is a human rule. Do not exploit your customers for your benefit. Try to benefit them as you are benefiting your company. Well, then what is their perceptions of you and your institution? If they think good about you, if your repo is not good, or if the reputation of your institution is not good, you are in trouble because she or he will not be trusting you. Your customer will not trust you. And to convince your customer, the very first thing is developing repo, making them have faith in you, have trust in you. Have you ever analyzed this thing? I might have mentioned this before as well, that nowadays there is a very hot trend of using celebrities in advertisement. Like in Pakistan, you would watch Shahid Afridi acting in a dandruff advertisement. That is the shampoo that is made for young men and boys. So why using Shahid Afridi for that? Why not Durdana Bhatt, or why not some old fellow like this Rahat Kazmi or something like this, like someone like him? Well, look at your objective. What do you want to achieve? You want to target men. So Durdana Bhatt is aside. Female gender is not your objective to impress. She's not your audience. My audience is men. So then my audience is youth for my own reasons. And if I'm talking about youth, well, I know youth's interest. I know men's interest, young boys or young men's interest is sports. And if I'm making my advertisement with some sportsman, Shahid Afridi is a good choice because he's a hot sportsman these days. And cricket is, we understand that cricket is a passion of Pakistani. So for Pakistani audience, picking up a sportsman like Shahid Afridi is a good choice. So that is why always try to understand what their perceptions are of you and your institute. And yes, I was talking about the trust. So he's somebody, a trustworthy fellow. If I, we know that our youth is crazy about cricket, and if they are crazy about cricket, they are crazy about Shahid Afridi too. So if Shahid Afridi is telling them, guys, use, head and shoulder as a dandruff killer, why won't they trust him? No matter if, he's lying, or no matter if he's just doing it for money and he does not do it himself, but a novice, somebody who's watching television, well, when he would go to a shop to buy a anti-dandruff shampoo, he would unconsciously go for head and shoulder because Shahid Afridi said that. So using your customers' trust for you, for your benefit and for company benefits is one thing that always demands a good relationship between you and your client. You are your audience. What are their questions likely to be? Always predict their questions. And you cannot have your predictions if you're not prepared for it. Be prepared for your assignment, for your task. Unless you have experience, you cannot predict things. Only if I have gone through this procedure, like if I'm going out of home, I'm going to, I'm going to buy a dress, and it's winters, and dress is very expensive, and there are concerns that my dress should reach home safe and sound because it's very expensive dress. And I, leave my house. When I go there, I buy the dress, everything goes fine. But when I'm out, I don't get a taxi there. How do I get home now? Maybe I need to walk, and it's such a heavy thing. And it caused me trouble. Or maybe it rains. When it rains, it spoils my dress. So next time when I will go to buy an expensive dress, I'll be prepared for my pickup. I will arrange my transport, and I make sure that I keep an umbrella with me or some backup. So if it's rain or if it's storm, I'm able to save my dress. So only this experience will enable me to understand what problems I can predict, and I can be prepared for in advance. However, if you are an inexperienced person, then how can you predict things? Yes, there is a way. There is a way out. Your observations. How do you make these observations? You read about it. Your information is there. People record information in terms of reports, in terms of letters, in terms of articles. So going through this published information that is on paper or on videos or on audios, or going to people and having or interacting with them, always let you be in the system, let you be in the scenario, and helps you understand. So your observations and your research about the phenomena enables you to predict and to prepare, of course. And this makes you prepared for the questions that can be there. What is personally at stake for them? Well, if you know that what are their concerns, you would understand what are their problems. For example, if I tell my if I tell my agent I get a seat for tomorrow, and I tell him that I cannot leave this country before 9 o'clock in the evening, however I cannot stay here after 10 o'clock in the morning. Only if he knows that this is my time restriction, he will find me a better option. If I tell him I have to leave tomorrow, he may give me a seat in the afternoon today, or he may give me a seat in the afternoon tomorrow, but that does not suit my time schedule. So always sharing the stake enables me to find a better option. However, at times your clients or customers do not share their stake with you. It is your job, being somebody related to business field, how to read customers' stake, how to understand their stake. And a good communicator, an effective communicator always gets away in the customer's stake and clients and audiences need. How much detail do they need? Now, it always is very important knowing that how much you have to deliver. If you deliver, if the message is under-delivered or over-delivered, it may not get you the desired results. So always try to look at this aspect, how much message is to be delivered. Don't overdo, don't underdo. Define what action is to be taken. What action do you want the audience to take? Do you want them to, stay tuned and wait for the more information? Do you want them to, you switch off your mobile phone, take the battery out, insert this inside, and then call me if your work is not done? You're giving clear instructions what is to be done. Or you want your audience, can you please inform me about this and this, and then I'll be in a better position to move your case further. So you want your audience to give you information. Always define your action, what you want them to take, because it enables them to understand what is to be done. At times they get confused. So somebody who is confusing may not give clear clues of what is to be done. So the thing is not done most of the time, in confusion. Both parties are confused and the work is not done. Define it in terms of the audience. Well, this means be out of box. Box is our own comfort zone that we being human beings prefer staying inside. We always have our own comfort zone, but when you are dealing with customers, when you are dealing with clients, when you are dealing with audience, one thing that you need to be sure about is that keep yourself in your place as a dealer, as somebody who is who's on the giving end, and be on the receiving end at the same time, and see how it feels when you step in your customer's shoe. Or what problems he or she might be facing, or how he or she will take my talk and react on that. Always look at the audience angle, be in that angle, and then try to look at the things from that space, that place. What will they feel, believe, and do after hearing your talk? Well, that's very important. You see, knowing their feelings, knowing their beliefs, and knowing their capacity or potential always enables you to take better decisions while delivering. Now, arranging your argument, once you are done with all these three things, you have prepared for these things, you're in a better position to arrange your argument. Well, shake hands with the audience, get to the point, present your theme, tell them, develop your agenda point by point, summarize and recommend, and this is it. So, when you are presenting your theme, you are telling them, you are developing your point of view, and you are summarizing. So these are the three things you are doing when you are presenting your theme. Now, let's have a talk about visual aids. What are these visual aids? Why do we use them? How do we use them? What is wrong with it? Well, visual aid can be anything that provides you with some graphics, with some image that provide a concrete example of the idea that you are conveying. It can be a picture, it can be a still picture, it can be a moving picture, it can be a video clip, it can be a video, it can be a film, it can be a TV episode, it can be anything that can be seen, anything that you are able to visualize in front of you. However, whenever you are designing a visual concept, keep three things in your mind. It has to be big enough to be noticed. It has to be simple. You need to know where to focus for your idea. It has to be clear, very clear. If it is big, it is clear, it is simple, at least you can assure yourself that it is delivered if there aren't any barriers, visual communication barriers. Well, what do I mean by big? I should be able to read it if it's verbal, written, and everything from the back row. If I'm providing some things on the slide as the pointers, it should be big enough for me. If it's a room of 100 people in this room, and I unfortunately I got the last bench in the room, It should be big enough for me to read. How will this be big enough? If my presenter is taking care of my needs, and he knows or she knows that there are 100 benches over here and there are almost 10 rows, so is my slide, is my font big enough for the 10th, somebody sitting in the 10th row to read? At least 28 font size, or preferably 36 for that kind of situation. So use the floor test. How do your presenter would know that it's a good font size? Go and read it from there. If you've already set it, if you don't have an idea whether it's right or wrong, set it, go to that distance, cover that distance, and then try to read. Are you able to read it? If you're not, you can always make changes. What do I mean by simple? Well, no more than 6 lines on a slide and no more than 7 words per line. However, be clear. I told you that there are differences, and there's difference of intention and objective. If you intend to talk more, if you want your audience to look at you all the time and they use the visual aid just to be on the track, you can use the pointers. However, if my intention, if this is to present an idea, but if I'm teaching, my intention is different. If I want my students to read more and listen less, my intention is different. So it always depends what are the objectives that you want to achieve, and then you design your visual aid accordingly. What I'm telling you right now, this is the format for the presentations, the professional business presentations. There we are sharing ideas, right? And we want to talk most of the time, and we want to use this visual aid for people to be on track and maintain a hierarchy of steps inside what I'm talking about. So this is what it has to be like. Now, what do I mean by clear? Clear by the font type, what font face I'm using. If you look at your PowerPoint, Microsoft PowerPoint application, you have different things over there. Okay, let me show you this. I want you to focus on the screen right now and look at the different things available here. When I say you have to be careful about the font size and font face, basically you are taking care of this area. All right, and in this area, this enables you to choose font color. You look at the different colors available. This enables you to choose font case or size. You can use different sentence cases. You can look at here. You can make it bold, italic, or underlined. This gives you the font size information, and this gives you the font face information. What font face do you want? I am referring you to Arial and Helvetica. See, this is Arial, and we can quickly go on to something if we know what it is by writing it. Helvetica, this one. So these are the clearer font faces that we can use. Alright, so after knowing this, you can talk about the blue background with yellow text. Well, it has to be clear. Like right now you can see it's a white background with a bright color text on it. So always try to use both of these things in a sharp contrast. Unless it's a sharp contrast, otherwise the text may merge into the background slides color. If it's a black background color and you're using brown text, you may not be able to see anything on the slide, or with distance increasing for the audience, this may becomes altogether invisible. So always use a simple sharp contrast for your slides background and for your color of your text. Now, avoid overuse of red, shadows, animation, and transition. Avoid overdo of all these things. If you are using, colors, you're making one slide hodgepodge of colors, you're using so many shadows, you're using animation and transition, you are basically distracting the audience from the message that they should be concentrating on, and you are taking them into something else that is not your concern. So use these things, use these aids to attract their attention. Do not overdo it to distract them. Beware of busy backgrounds. Well, if instead of the clear background, if I'm using a picture, and this picture has so many items, the background will become too busy, too cluttered, that my words will not be clear on it. Some people like having flowers in the background. Some people prefer having a scenery in the background. Well, yes, you can use it, but that depends. Is this suitable for the type of presentation you are going to offer? If it does, you can use it. If it's a professional one, try to stick with the clear and simple strategy. Now, clip art should add to the content. If you are talking about things, then clip art is one idea, one aid that can help you with animation. And then use on sound clips if you want to. Use a different background only to emphasize one slide. Like you see the change of slide I provided here. This is for this purpose that I wanted to show you. Like all the three things that I talked about: simplicity, clarity of the items on the slide. I use the same kind of slide, but now when I'm switching on another topic, that is questions and answer, I have changed the slide pattern. So you can quickly get, okay, something has changed, and that's another shift inside the topic. Though we don't do it most of the time when we are teaching, because in teaching it's very hectic and it's very busy, and you do not get enough time to get into these animations. However, when you are making these professional presentations, making a presentation is 50% of your job, because you are selling your idea. And again, these things vary in different situations. Basically what you're doing, you are serving your objective. So first you need to write down your objectives. Once you're clear about your objectives, all these decisions will be made accordingly. Alright, did you see this animation that comes, it's an entrance animation that I made. You want something not to be there on the slide already, and you want this to be there when you click on a button. So it can come anyway. There are different ways that PowerPoint offers transitions from up, from down, from right, from left, swirls, circles, movements, fade, disappearing, visible, getting invisible, enlarged, embossed. So there are different items that you can use for according to your needs, but I would say don't make your slides a hodgepodge of all these things together, because then something that you are discussing doesn't remain to be the focus of attention. It gets diverted. Well, Henry Kissinger says, does anyone have questions for my answers? Well, this should be your attitude when you are expecting questions in your presentation. Well, this reminds me a wonderful occasion, classroom occasion, when we had presentations last time, and my students were postgraduate students, and they were presenting on, they were business management students, and they were presenting on something. And though they were presenting very well, but by the end of the presentations, one would say, well, do you understand? I hope you don't have any questions. And all right, or somebody would reluctantly say, any questions? And though the presentation was very good, but the way he would say any questions would make his friends not to question even if they have it. So this type of attitude, try to avoid this type of attitude. This opportunity to make your customer, to make your audience speak, basically is a plus point for the presenter. So if there's anything ambiguous there is anything left during your talk, a question can remind you of that, and you can clear this. Basically, this gives you a chance to, a second chance of doing something that you could not do so far. So if any question on the audience side is left to be answered, you can answer it. If they want some confirmation, you can confirm it. However, at times there are problems. And I'm going to talk about these question answer problems, but these question and answers are beginning of a whole new interactive presentation, and you get an opportunity to make a point or reinforce a point or emphasize a point. And most presentations are won or lost here. If you are not a good effective presenter, if you don't know the value and worth of question answer session, you may lose the impact that you have made so far in your presentation. If you are not able to provide answer to the question of your audience, then you are losing your impact. I'm going to give you one interesting example of this into your visual comparison today. How the person is unable to oh yes, I showed you that in the previous lecture. You remember that lady who could not get the question of the audience and she could not answer it. So what was the result? That she lost their interest and they got confused. Well, at times, when audience, and if they are novice audience and you are selling your product and it's something new for them, their questions are not very composed, and they want to question, but they are not questioning. And if you look at the structure and grammar of their articulation, they maybe sound like commenting. So what you need to do is find out question out of the comment and try to answer it. So anticipate lines of questioning. Maybe you cannot hear the question straight away in the articulation, but you can understand what the audience wants to know about. So try to answer that if you know the answer and if you can satisfy them. And for that, what you can do is that make a list of questions regarding your product you're talking about or your idea you're talking about, and then try to answer your questions. Don't rank questions. Don't call some questions a very good question or a bad question, or, well, that's a fine question. You don't need to say that. Each question has to be taken on a positive note, and you have to make your audience happy with your response. Even if you're not answering it straight away, your response should be a positive one. Keep your answer brief, because here I will bring that point of having some problems in question answer sessions, because most of the time, not all the questions are asked with the intention of getting an answer. Some questions are asked for the sake of questions. Somebody who would like to make himself or herself, highlighted or to be noticed will make a question. Well, you understand that this person has a clear idea of what I said, and he does not really need an answer. So you have to compose your answer accordingly. Maybe this person needs confirmation that what she or he got is right, and he understood it right. So you say, yes, absolutely right. Here you go. So your response should be very positive. Do not annoy your audience, because the audience can be difficult at times. Some people may ask you question to pull your leg, something they know that it's not coming under the area that you are discussing, and then they would speak, ask a question. And in front of 100 people, you cannot, really stay quiet. You have to answer. You cannot give wrong information. So they want to put you in this difficult situation on purpose. And these are leg pulling. There can be leg pulling questions. You have to deal with all these things positively, because that's a part of the game. When you're dealing in business, you are cross questions. You are scrutinized to the limit that you feel like crying, but you need to hold your emotions. Stay cool and keep your calm, and think about it. How can you deal with it positively? And if you reach at a point where you think it's nowhere reaching the idea that you are discussing, you can politely say, well, that's a wonderful question, very intelligent, but probably this does not directly interact with the point I'm trying to make here. So what I was saying, and you come up with the idea that you were talking. So dealing with the situations positively. Keeping your answer brief is a wise strategy, because if you speak too much, this may give the audience another chance to ask another question. So a long question may may provide you a space to get distracted or leave another ambiguity. So avoid that. Be honest. Don't try to lie around. Try to be honest. Don't try to confuse your audience. If you don't know something, try to figure it out a way that you tell your audience that this is not clear yet, and you would like to provide them more information, more detailed information. You can take their contact email address or something formal, and you can tell them, well, I can get back with a brief and detailed information on that, so you are able to take your decision with all the information at hand. Avoid negative words. Don't say, well, this question does not deal with my idea. Even if it is not dealing with your idea, if it is not addressing your idea, you have to deal with it positively. You are not to use negative words at all. Or you say, well, it's an irritating question. Do not use negative words. Don't repeat negative questions. If a negative question is asked, don't repeat it. Try to put it positively then and there. Clarify questions. But at times you get confused yourself as a presenter that what is being asked. So whatever you get out of the articulation made by somebody, some audiences, or some of them, if you're not clear about the question, you can rephrase it and you can ask, like, are you trying to say, or are you inquiring about? So by using these starters, what you are doing, you're confirming that this is what they want to know. So once you are done with the question, once you know what is the question, if you are well prepared, you're in a better position to answer that. I will defer to experts. Always, you can be in a situation where you're not the only expert. You are talking to experts. So do not try to involve a situation where you are challenging them. Or do not try to involve a situation where you are just being convinced by somebody. You're not in a position to being totally convinced. You have to make your point of view stand as one point of view. Do not surrender. However, do not stay stubborn. You have to be, it's very sensitive. You have to keep up with the sensitivity, and you have to make wise decisions and wise statements. Move your eyes off questioner. Well, if you are answering, you're not answering only one person. When a question comes up, well, you acknowledge the questioner, you receive the question, you reply to it in a positive tone, but then you are addressing all the audience. So if someone else has the same kind of ambiguity, you are answering all of them. If negative and your response are focused on somebody else, if you find the communication is going on with one person and it's getting into negative territory, try to switch your gaze and look at someone else, or look at the broader side of the audience and start something. Try to give a diversion here. All right. So the rule is never argue with a member of the audience, no matter what. No matter what, do not get into any argument with the audience, and because this may spoil the situation, and this may impact negatively on your work, what you have done so far. Instead, what you can do is that a strategy to go through such situation is that look at the questioner, remain neutral and attentive, remain positive, cool and calm, listen to the whole question, pause before you respond, and address the questioner, then move your eyes to others. And that's the way to move on with that. Easy as ABC. I can't answer that question but I can tell you. If something is really off track, but it comes up, you can be clear and honest about it. You can say, I can't answer this particular aspect of this question because you give the reason, whatever is the reason, but I can tell you that. Then you come up with your point of view and the thing that you really know about. So you're not just refusing to answer, you're willing to answer, but this maybe the answer is not with you right now, or you are not sure about something, but still you have something to deliver to your audience. Well, Mark Twain says, better to keep your mouth shut and appear ignorant than open it and remove all doubts. Sometimes it's not always advised to remove all the doubts. Sometimes you even yourself are not clear about few things. So instead of giving a wrong, clear answer, let your audience be doubtful, but tactfully. You need to handle such situation, such sensitive situations tactfully when you're not giving a clear-cut answer because you doubt that your clear-cut answer may not be the accurate one. You can go away with a doubtful statement, but do not refuse answering and do not give wrong information. Make sure, Dorothy Sarnoff says, make sure you have finished speaking before your audience has finished listening. Well, as you have speaking time, your audience has listening time too. Try to understand their capacity. Try to understand that they are done with listening. So finish your, you need to keep up with this biological aspect of, their listening and being attentive. You cannot keep them attentive for hours and hours and hours and hours. There always is a time for a presentation, whether it's of 20 minutes or 15 minutes and 30 minutes, and that you indicate right in the beginning. Do not take too long, because if you will take too long, no matter how interesting your discussion is, no matter how wonderful presenter you are, after some biological time, your audience will get restless and they will lose their attention, and your presentation may face a failure that should not be there. All right, with this interesting quote, we have reached to the end of our today's talk regarding presentation skills. And in the previous session, we discussed about the hows of presentation skills. Today, we talked about the what's of presentation skills. Now, in the next activity, that is our usual routine activity, where we either you listen to something or you watch something, we are going to have a listening activity of the day that is regarding presentation skills. And that will not only give you listening practice for content, but will give you specific content, specific listening practice, plus your language expansion for the idea that is we are discussing, that is presentation skills. Today's focus of listening drill is voice and emphasis. How do we keep our voice formal and clear? How do we speak naturally and highlight our idea when we are presenting? The audio that you're going to listen to is will have some bad examples followed by an analysis and some good examples to be the techniques to be learned regarding how to provide clarity, right pronunciation, pauses, and a considerable pace in your voice when you are articulating things, and how to give due emphasis through the arrangement of words, repetition, rhetorical speech techniques, WH questions, and falling intonation. Go ahead and listen to this part of the audio.
When I say using your voice to give a good presentation, what comes to mind? Perhaps the first thing you think of is speaking fluently and clearly. Another important question is how to emphasize your ideas. In this episode, we'll be studying these points: how to speak naturally and how to highlight ideas. In addition, we'll be looking at a few expressions and phrases you can use to add extra emphasis to your presentation. This listening takes place at Pharmatech, a major international pharmaceutical manufacturer based in Switzerland. In this episode, a group of European journalists are taking a tour of Pharmatech's new high-potency production center in Beijing, which is scheduled to start making Pharmatech's new blockbuster medication, Zorax, in the fall of 2007. Blockbuster means hugely successful. High-potency production refers to using highly potent or very strong chemicals. This is a manufacturing technique that requires state-of-the-art or very advanced technology. We'll be hearing Pharmatech employees introduce the new plant. We'll start with a couple of very bad examples where the voice needs a lot of work. Listen to Günther Schmidt, the manager of Pharmatech's Corporate Affairs Division. As you listen, focus on his voice. What does he do wrong?
Here at Pharmatech, not only are we devoted to improving patients' quality lives, simultaneously, we're committed to protecting the environment. That's why the High Potency Production Center has adopted state-of-the-art green technology and advanced international production techniques.
What do you think? It sounds like Gunther had maybe too much coffee or forgotten to take out his chewing gum, doesn't it? So, what are the main problems with Gunther's speech? First of all, he doesn't clearly enunciate or pronounce his words, does he? All of us can relate to Gunther's problem. When you're speaking a foreign language, you should actually slow your speech down and do your best to speak clearly. But it's tempting to speed up and blend words together so that you can hide any problems you might have with your pronunciation. However, doing this makes your speech hard to understand.
Here at Pharmatech, not only are we devoted to improving patients' quality lives.
It's almost impossible to clearly make out, not only are we, isn't it? After a little coaching, Gunther does a much better job. Let's listen to his improved version.
Here at Pharmatech, not only are we completely devoted to improving patients' quality of life.
The words are much more clearly enunciated, aren't they? Now, let's go back to Gunther's bad example again. What other problems were there with his speech?
That's why the High Potency Production Center has adopted state-of-the-art green technology and advanced international production techniques.
In addition to poor enunciation, Gunther is speaking too fast, isn't he? Contrary to popular belief, it's actually quite hard to change the speed at which you speak. The rate at which you actually produce syllables, or parts of words, is called articulation rate. For most speakers, it is fixed. That is, it doesn't change very much, even if they try. So, what does it mean when it sounds like someone is speaking too fast? Well, what it actually means is that they're making fewer pauses. Making more pauses can be very good for your speech. When you listen to a politician or to a trained speaker, you find that they pause more frequently. Also, the length of the pauses is longer than normal. This gives the impression that the speech is much slower and lends an air of strength or authority to the speaker. Let's listen to a better example, where Gunther makes more frequent and longer pauses.
That's why the High Potency Production Center has adopted state-of-the-art green technology and advanced production techniques.
In this example, Gunther speaks like he has more authority and seems more professional, doesn't he? Speaking more slowly, that is, adding more frequent and longer pauses to your speech, will add power to your presentation. Also, breaking the words down into smaller groups makes them easier to say, which will help your speech become clear and more fluent. Now, let's listen to another bad example. This time, we'll hear Tanya Witherspoon Chen, who is Corporate Communications Manager for Pharmatech China, the company's joint venture in China. She's trying to give the same speech that Gunther just did.
Here at Pharmatech, not only are we devoted to improving patients' quality of lives, simultaneously, we are committed to protecting the environment. That's why the High Potency Production Center has adopted state-of-the-art green technology and advanced international production techniques.
It's painful to listen to, isn't it? What's the problem? Well, she has enough pauses, but they're not in the right places. This sounds not fluent or choppy. Choppy means she stops in all the wrong places. Tanya needs a little coaching. She needs to divide her words into grammatically logical groups. To help herself speak more fluently, she needs to use longer and more frequent pauses. Let's listen to Tanya giving the same presentation. But this time, she's received some coaching and she does a much better job. Also, she's added a few words to give special emphasis to her talk.
Here at Pharmatech, not only are we completely devoted to improving patients' quality of life, at the same time, we are totally committed to protecting the environment. That's why the High Potency Production Center has adopted state-of-the-art green technology and advanced international production techniques. Thus, we achieve a high level of protection for the environment and for workers. Also, this serves as a model of excellence for other production lines. And above all, it embodies Pharmatech's commitment to sustainable development. So please come this way and I'll be glad to show you the production line.
This time, Tanya did a much better job, didn't she? She sounds confident, fluent, and strong. Let's take a look at how she achieves these effects. We've already talked about pausing. Tanya has arranged her words into grammatically logical groups, such as adverbial phrases, subjects, predicates, and so on. Listen again.
Here at Pharmatech, not only are we completely devoted to improving patients' quality of life, at the same time, we are totally committed to protecting the environment.
There are clear pauses after Pharmatech, devoted, lives, time, and committed. These pauses break the speech down into logical groups. Note that Tanya could have even added more pauses if she wanted to. For example, she could have said, not only are we completely devoted to improving patients' quality of lives, even with more pauses, as long as Tanya divides her speech into grammatically logical groups, she will sound fluent. To sum up, not fluent or choppy speech comes from improper pausing, not from pausing too much. Now, there's another level that we need to pay attention to when we talk about voice. That is, intonation, or the rise and fall in pitch. For example, in English, as you know, most yes-no questions have a rising intonation.
Are you free for dinner?
Have you finished the report?
On the other hand, the WH questions, where, when, who, etc., have a falling intonation.
What are you doing later?
How is the report coming along?
Going back to Tanya's speech, when do you hear rising intonation and when do you hear falling intonation?
All right, welcome back. So you understood the concepts of clear voicing and giving emphasis. Now, the coming part of audio is about the falling and rising intonation patterns and how does this help us keeping up with the stress and emphasis techniques. You will listen to a few examples where you will learn how to intensify, how to use intensifiers and strengthening adverbs to pay due emphasis to your idea. Use of voice, stressing a verb, and stressing a key verb. Words are the techniques that you are going to be told about, and also arranging information in parts of sentences. If you are using a clause sentence that has two clauses with a conjunction, which is but or and, what to keep in the first part of the sentence, what to keep in the second part of the sentence to provide emphasis. This is what you are going to learn in this part of audio. Go ahead with the audio.
Here at Pharmatech, not only are we completely devoted to improving patients' quality of life, at the same time, we are totally committed to protecting the environment.
The pitch goes up at the end of the first sentence after quality of lives and down at the end of the second sentence after protecting the environment. Why is that? Well, in English, basically, intonation goes down at the end of an idea. Not only A, rising intonation, but also B, falling intonation. Listen to another example.
That's why the High Potency Production Center has adopted state-of-the-art green technology and advanced international production techniques.
The intonation rises after production center and green technology and finishes at the end of her idea and of her sentence. which is after techniques. Listen to a few more sentences with rising and falling intonations.
Our products range from high-end industrial printers to low-end consumer models.
Success in business requires 4 things: hard work, vision, luck, and good relationships.
This is not a matter of cutting costs, but of increasing profit.
Good. So far, we've covered 2 major parts of making your voice smooth and fluent: pausing and intonation. Now, we're going to look at the third important element in using your voice to give a good presentation: stress and emphasis. Going back to Tanya's speech, did you notice anything different about the content compared to the bad example? To emphasize her points, she's made use of some intensifying or strengthening adverbs, such as completely or totally.
Not only are we completely devoted to improving patients' quality of life, at the same time, we are totally committed to protecting the environment.
This type of adverb is sometimes called an intensifier. Listen to some more examples of their use.
There is absolutely no room for compromise on this issue.
This is a terribly important problem to tackle.
As far as I can see, we have completely failed in implementing this marketing plan.
In the past 6 months, we have totally succeeded in meeting our targets.
We really need to reinvent our whole branding strategy.
This market is highly competitive.
One thing you might have noted from these examples is that we frequently use our voice to add extra emphasis to intensifying adverbs. That is, instead of just saying, "We are totally committed," we can say, "We are totally committed." Let's call this extra emphasis stressing a word. Using your voice to stress key words is another important strategy that good presenters use. Let's take a look at a couple more examples from Tanya's speech. Which words are emphasized?
That's why the High Potency Production Center has adopted state-of-the-art green technology and advanced international production techniques.
Did you hear the stress on state-of-the-art and advanced? These are key points, things that differentiate Pharmatech from the competitors. So, Tanya wants to give them special emphasis.
Thus, we achieve a high level of protection for the environment and for workers.
In this case, Tanya stresses the word "and" to highlight the point that protection for workers is important. It's important to be conscious of how stress can change meaning. Listen to these 2 examples.
Our sales have improved in Western Europe. Our sales have improved in Western Europe.
What's the difference in meaning between these 2 sentences? By stressing Western, the second sentence makes it sound like our sales have improved in Western Europe, but not elsewhere in Europe, perhaps not in Central or Eastern Europe. So far today, we've already studied pausing, intonation, and stress. Now, let's finish off by looking at a couple of words and expressions that Tanya uses to add emphasis to her speech.
Also, this serves as a model of excellence for other production lines. And above all, it embodies Pharmatech's commitment to sustainable development.
Sustainable development refers to development that can be sustained or maintained over the long term. It usually has an environmental meaning. To protect the environment, it's important to pursue sustainable development of business and resources. To embody a commitment is a good collocation or word partnership that you should learn. Embody means to represent or symbolize. So, Pharmatech's high-tech grain production lines embody, that is, represent or serve as a symbol of, its commitment to long-term sustainable growth. Now, compared to the bad example we examined at the beginning, what words has Tanya added to make her ideas clearer and to give emphasis to key points? She has added, and above all, to the last sentence to give special weight to Pharmatech's commitment to sustainable development. What are some other phrases you can use to add special emphasis to your key ideas? Let's look at some examples.
In particular, improving quality is very important.
Above all, we need to think of more ways to improve sales.
Without a doubt, opening up new markets is our greatest challenge.
I'd like to emphasize our complete dedication to this project.
What's especially important is that we consider this challenge from all angles and take into account different perspectives.
Good. Now let's practice what we've just learned. Imagine you're giving a speech to introduce your new factory to some journalists. You have to make 3 key points. Your new production center uses advanced technology, protects the environment and workers, and embodies your commitment to sustainable development. In a moment, you'll hear a cue or hint reminding you of these 3 points. Then, you'll have a few seconds to think. After the beep, make a sentence that includes all 3 key ideas. Be careful to put your words into logical grammatical groups to sound smooth and fluent. Also, think about intonation. For example, the pitch should fall when you're at the end of your idea. Finally, you should try using your voice or some emphasizing words to add special stress to a key point or 2. Are you ready? Let's give it a try.
Uses advanced technology, protects the environment and workers, embodies our commitment to sustainable development.
How did that go? Listen to an example answer.
Our new production center uses advanced technology, completely protects the environment and workers, and, above all, embodies our commitment to sustainable development.
Keep in mind that there are many possible correct answers. Rewind and try it again. Try stressing different words and using different intensifiers and emphasizing expressions. What happens when you put the words in a different order? Experiment. Now that you've finished that, you're probably thinking of more ways to practice. One good way to build fluency is to record yourself reading aloud. Work on the strategies we've learned today. First, before you read, mark pauses on the paper with a pencil. You can also use arrows to mark intonation, either up or down. And you can underline words you wish to stress. You should practice anticipating, that is, reading ahead. While you're making a pause, look at the next group of words. Focus on putting the words into grammatically logical groups. Don't be afraid to pause frequently and to make longer pauses. You can always practice speeding up later if you want.
All right, welcome back. Well, I hope that with this today's talk coupled with this wonderful listening drill, you are in a better position to understand what are the requirements of an effective presenter and what are the skills that you need to where you need to practice in order to be an effective presenter. Well, with this we finish our today's talk, and what we learned today, we talked about different 3 A's of preparing our content for presentation. We developed ideas of how to prepare a visual aid. We learned a few things about the PowerPoint, and we learned how, why, to respond, to reply to questions after the presentation or maybe during the presentation, and our listening activity helped us understand the strategies related to voice and emphasis. This was all for today's talk. I'll see you in the next lecture, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.